Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'll just introduce Prabhuji. For the past 15 years, Kanchanabja Prabhuji has spread the Krishna consciousness philosophy to university students and Sangha, such as this one, having taken a year sabbatical at the manor to prepare himself for the corporate world. Professionally, Prabhuji gives lectures to students so that they're better prepared to pass their chartered accountancy exams. And today he prepares us to pass our final exam. Prabhuji has two young daughters, Geshavi and Revati, who have been his jogging partners since the pandemic. He is also an advocate of journaling as a means of controlling the mind. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, welcome to the Bhagavatam class. Over
Hare
to
Krishna
yourself.
Prabhu.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much for inviting me. I feel honored to be given this opportunity to be with everyone today and to maybe share something on Srimad Bhagavatam. In terms of the usual schedule, Prabhu, do we normally read through the text, or would you like me just to summarize Canto 2, Chapter 1? How would
Yeah,
you
we leave it to yourself. You either do a summary and pick out specific texts. It's entirely up to you how you wish to give the class.
Okay.
So yeah,
Thank you. And how long should I go for before we open it up for discussion?
well, we have gone on for quite a while, sometimes an hour and a half,
Okay.
depending on who. That's Nishkanjan or Prabhu. He's always,
Oh
you
yeah.
know. So I think we leave that up to you. But the class is normally an hour, 5 minutes to ask questions. But I believe
Okay.
this forum is a mixture of different
Sure.
people at different levels, etc.
Okay, so maybe what I'll try and do is I won't speak for too long because I like to leave some more time for discussion and questions and reflections, and hopefully I can bring out some points from this chapter that will raise some discussion points and get people thinking, and we can have some discussion and hopefully get everyone's thoughts on Canto 2, Chapter 1. Is that okay?
That sounds perfect. I hope everyone's on board. Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. And if you're okay to switch on your videos, that would be really nice. Thank you to those that have switched on their videos, and if others can, I'll be very grateful. It's nice to see everyone. Hey, Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. So I'll just chant the Mangala Charan prayer. Is that okay? And then maybe we can um, discuss what's happening in the first chapter, the second canto. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So it's the first chapter of the second canto. Exciting stuff. So you've been through the previous 19 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The first canto is 19 chapters, and a lot of the first canto, those of us who are familiar with the Mahabharata will be familiar with some of the stories, and what Srimad Bhagavatam does is it takes out the essence from a lot of the stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam during the first canto, and gives us some real learning points, some real thinking points, some real reflecting points. Towards the end of the 19th chapter of the first canto, Maharaj Parikshit is asking some questions to Shukadev Goswami. Asked some very prominent questions, and the prominent questions he's asking is, okay, what is the duty of a dying person? What should someone hear? What should someone chant? What should someone remember? What should someone worship? What should that person not do? Yeah, what should they do and what should they not do? And then Shukadev Goswami begins to answer Maharaj Parikshit's inquiry at the beginning of the second canto. So here we are in the first chapter of the second canto, which is entitled The First Step in God Realization. And Shukadev Goswami, we're all aware of who Shukadev Goswami is because you would have heard that from the previous chapter. Shukadev Goswami, who's the son of Vyas, he enters this arena where there are many sages present, because Maharaj Parikshit, when he gets told that he's going to die within 7 days, he's been cursed by Shringi. He was cursed by Shringi. Shringi was the son, of the Brahmana that Maharaj Parikshit had. Well, he didn't really offend the Brahmana so much, but he offended the son of the Brahmana by. Does anyone remember what did Maharaj Parikshit do that caused Shringi to get very upset? Does anyone remember? Would anyone like to unmute and remind everyone what did Maharaj Parikshit do?
He put the dead snake on the sage.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Usha Mataji. Maharaj Parikshit, he put a dead snake on the sage, on the Brahmana. Why did he do that? Anyone remember why he did that? Like, what was he feeling at the time? What was the overriding, what was he overcome with? What was the overriding problem that Maharaj Parikshit was under? Anyone remember?
Because
yeah, Dinesh Prabhu?
Because the sage did not welcome the king.
Good. The sage, thank you very much. The sage didn't welcome the king. Okay. And was the king in perfectly normal condition? Was he in a normal condition? He went to the house. Lisa?
He was tired and
He was
thirsty.
tired.
He was tired. He was very, very thirsty. How are we generally when we're thirsty? Like, you haven't drunk water for a long time. What happens to us?
We get agitated, angry.
Thank you, Dinesh. We get a bit agitated, we get a bit irritated, we get angry, and we sometimes would do things that we wouldn't normally do. When my daughters come home from school, sometimes they are, most of the time, but I'd say sometimes they are extra loopy. Like, sometimes they've gone on an extra level of madness. I mean, one of them is 9, Keshavi is 9, the younger one is Revati, she's 6. So when Revati comes home and she's a little extra loopy, what I generally then do is check her school bag, and then I check how much water she's drunk. And what I notice is that on the days she's extra cuckoo, the reason is she hasn't drunk any water the whole day. And we're like this also. When we don't drink water the whole day, we're not in the most we're not in our best form, we could say. So when Maharaj Parikshit entered this home of the Brahmana, he was very, very thirsty. He was very, very thirsty. And when the sage didn't welcome him, because the sage was in a bit of a trance, you could say. He was doing his meditation. So what Maharaj Parikshit did in agitation, he kind of, with his bow, he just kind of saw this dead snake. He lifted it and just garlanded the snake on top of the sage. When the sage got up, he didn't think much of it. He just saw the snake and just like, anyway, just like how we would be if if we just saw a dead fly on our shoulder, you'd probably just give it a little flick and off it goes, you know, like maybe blow it, and off it goes, you know, Hare Krishna, you know, just like get it off, like insignificant. So in that sense, Maharaj Parikshit, what happened, Maharaj Parikshit did commit some sort of offense. He did do something wrong. But one thing we can understand from this is that we should be careful from all of our actions, because sometimes what happens, the smallest of mistakes can sometimes yield a very difficult lesson. And Maharaj Parikshit then, when he was on his way back to his kingdom, after he did this, he knew something was wrong. He knew something he knew he did something wrong. He knew that it wasn't right what he did. And before you know it, he was given the news. A messenger came to the kingdom and said, the son of this Brahmana, he found out what you did, and in so much anger, he's cursed you to die within 7 days. Now, Shringi, the son, he wasn't exactly, you could say, he wasn't exactly giving the correct punishment for the crime. But Maharaj Parikshit accepted it. He accepted it and he thought, okay, this is what's come to me. And because this is what's come to me, I will accept, excuse me, I will accept and I will relinquish, renounce my kingdom, and I will straight away go to the bank of the Ganga and try and find some answers to what I should do, because now I've only got 7 days to live. So this is kind of where we are in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Maharaj Parikshit, he's at the Ganga, he meets lots of sages, he meets lots of different saintly people, and they're all kind of debating, who should we hear from, what should we do? And when Shukadev Goswami turned up to the arena, we could say everyone was like, whoa, this is the personality, which is what you probably heard about last time. So then Maharaj Parikshit, he's surrendering to Shukadev Goswami, he's accepted Shukadev Goswami, as of all the other personalities who are there. Though so many people have turned up, so many different sages from different schools of thought have turned up. And Maharaj Parikshit, being a compassionate Vaishnava, being a compassionate devotee of the Lord, in compassion, even though he only had 7 days to live, he didn't make it all about himself, which is very, very amazing, isn't it? Because if I had 7 days to live, I'd be like, hey, why are you even getting involved? I've got 7 days. It's all about me for 7 days. 7 days time, do what you want. But Maharaj Parikshit, in those 7 days, he was still very concerned that everyone around him got an opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in a way that they could understand it, in a way that they could finally accept the truth. So accepting the truth, what it means to accept the truth, in one sense, it means accepting it from where we are. Some of us have different backgrounds. We have different ways of thinking, and we need to try and find an avenue to how Srimad Bhagavatam can really live with us, how Srimad Bhagavatam can really settle in with our way of thinking. And the other thing that is really important also is for us to think, how can I share what I've learned with those around me? And this process, or this what can we say, the right word I'm looking for, this, I wouldn't say need, but I would say this inspiration, that's the word I'm looking for, this inspiration to share Srimad Bhagavatam, even whatever little we've learnt with others, is very, very important. And the reason it becomes important is because, one, we become very sensitive to people around us. And it's very, 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 very deep in a relationship if we can become sensitive to others. If we can become sensitive to others, we can go real deep in our connections and relationships. We're often so stuck with me, my way of thinking, how they offended me, how they upset me, how they shouldn't have talked to me like that, how they really don't understand the way they should have done things. You know, we get so caught up in what others have done. But when we are really in this mood of sharing inspiration, we're in this mood of sharing wisdom that we are hearing, then what happens is we start to think, okay, from what angle do they see life? From which angle have they explored spiritual topics? And in which way can I discuss the teachings of this ancient wisdom with them to uplift the conversation and deepen the connection? Right? We want to, this is really important, isn't it? When we're with someone, that we can uplift a conversation and deepen the connection. Because otherwise, a lot of the time, if we're not in that mood to uplift a conversation and to deepen a connection, what happens is we kind of get stuck in other people's gossip, isn't it? Isn't it? When you go to work, oh my God, it's like, whoa, it's like this person, that person. You go to a family event, it's like, whoa, this person, that person. And before you know it, we get stuck. And it's said actually that there's a saying, small minds talk about people. Average minds discuss events, and great minds discuss wisdom. Right? So small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, but great minds discuss wisdom. So and it's not necessarily we'll discuss exactly what we've read in the way we read it, but maybe we'll try and churn out a teaching. And by churning out a teaching, we try and share it with someone that uplifts us and it uplifts them, and then we deepen the connection. So Maharaj Parikshit, he's here, he's asking questions to Shukadev Goswami, and at the same time, he's not just thinking, save me. He's thinking, save everyone around me. There's thousands of people around, save them too. Save them too. So what happens is, Maharaj Parikshit, he says, first thing he says to Shukadev Goswami, the first thing he says is that, wow, what a question. You know, a lot of people, if you've got 7 days to live, they're thinking, what last thrill can I get in this material world? Shall I go skydiving? You know, shall I do something crazy? What can I do? What last thrill can I get from this material world? But Shukadev Goswami is saying, wow, Maharaj, wow, oh king, you're asking an amazing question. You're asking something so profound. You're asking something so relevant. You're asking something so deep. You want to know what's the duty of a dying person. You want to know what they should chant. You want to know what they should hear. You want to know what they should be doing. You want to know what they should not be doing. Wow. And this uplifts Maharaj Parikshit. Isn't it like when someone asks a question, when someone asks a question, or if you ask someone a question and you get some encouragement, it's like, well, yeah, cool, you know, and then you're up for it more. So Shukadev Goswami is teaching us how to be with others. It's so important we're sensitive to others. It's just so important that we're thinking about that other person, how they've approached this conversation, and from where they're at, how can I uplift them? This is Maharaj Parikshit with 7 days to live, and Shukadev Goswami is giving him that notch. Yes, you've done the right thing. You've done the right thing. Go for it. What you're about to do right now, hearing this transcendental knowledge, you're doing exactly the right thing you should be doing. Amazing. He gets inspired. And he says it's not just beneficial to you, but this question is beneficial to everybody, everyone around. So Shukadev Goswami says, look, the things you shouldn't do, and he's very real. And I'm not, we can't hide what it says. This is like the third text of that chapter. We can all read it. He says, don't waste your life. What we shouldn't do is waste our life. And he says it very clearly. Don't waste your life just thinking about making money during the day and having sex during the night. He's very clear to Maharaj, but don't just let that be your life. There must be more. There must be more. And what he says is that one who wants to become free from misery, one who wants to become fearless, one who wants to become great, one who wants the supreme destination at the end, one must remember the Lord. One must remember the Lord, the Supreme Lord, who is our greatest shelter. When we take shelter of the Lord in the most difficult of times, we feel very protected. When we are challenged in difficult situations, what's inside really comes out. What's inside really comes out. You know, you think, like for me, like, you know, I've been practicing spiritual life, maybe 20, 22 years, something like that. Yeah, I mean, I'd say seriously, for about 19 years, but I think for the first 3 years, I was kind of like just getting into it, and just kind of zoning in. I was kind of just at university exploring, and so, you know, I've been practicing spiritual life for a long time, and my ego says to me, my mind says to me, hey, you know, Kanchanabja, you're all right, you know, you're doing well in your spiritual life, you're doing good. You think of Krishna, you're giving classes, you know some shlokas, you know, I'm trying to big myself up to myself, thinking, oh wow, yeah, maybe I'm all right, you know, and then a challenging situation comes along. And I can tell you of a difficult situation. A couple of weeks ago, I was giving, it was a Sunday afternoon. I was actually giving a talk on a Sunday afternoon. Demendra, you were there. I was giving a talk as a Sunday afternoon. Then after that talk finished, I took my daughter out to the park. So we went to the park. We had a really nice time. With just me and my older daughter. My younger daughter had hurt her foot, so she stayed home. So it's just me and Kesha. We went for a walk. Went to the park, we went climbing up some hills. It was like we're just having a really, really fun time together. Just wanted to spend some quality time with her. Then I was chanting, she was on a scooter. We just took this long route walk. And then at some point what happened, because she was on her scooter, she's always ahead, right? I'm behind her. So she's ahead and I'm behind. And at some point, and this was the most shocking thing, that for me, it was just like, oh my God, she's on her scooter. So like, just imagine this is a road. She's on her scooter. This is her on her scooter. I'm about here, a few blocks, if you say a few houses behind, and we're on a pavement. And in front of me here, what I see coming out of the driveway is a dog. And the dog just starts chasing Keshavi. It's like, oh my God. And I'm like quite far behind. And I just shout out, Keshavi, stay calm. Keshavi, stay calm. But she couldn't hear me because she was going really fast on her scooter. And this dog is just galloping after her. And we're going towards my parents' house. And so she's in, by the time I'm jogging up, trying to run up, Keshavi's in the driveway, right? And it's quite a long driveway to my parents' house. So she's down the driveway. She still hasn't seen this dog. Then she turns around and she screams her head off. She just, and this dog is just like jumping on her. And I'm like scared out of my wits. I've never had a dog. And the only dogs I've ever come across is because I've got family in Kenya, and who we go and visit ever since I've been a kid. I've only seen guard dogs that like, that want to bite and just get rid of thieves. So I see this dog just kind of like, but the dog just wanted to play, right? But I didn't know this. At this time, all I can see is this dog. I'm reading all this stuff in the news about dog attacks and all this kind of stuff. And I'm seeing this dog attack Keshvi, and Keshvi then runs. And when Keshvi runs, the dog just chases after her. And all this time, I'm just screaming, help! And I'm just screaming like, I just wanted the dog owner to come out and grab the dog. And in all this fear, then Keshu is running and I'm shouting, anybody, come and get your dog, come and get your dog. And I was just thinking, anyway, this whole episode lasted, for me, it was an eternity of minutes. I don't know how many, maybe 5, 7, but it was a long, like she had to run. She was, anyway, it was quite a scene when I think back. I'd lost my voice for 3 days after that. But the lesson I was thinking is, what's inside really comes out. And what was inside me was just so much fear. You know, it was just so much fear, so much fear. And actually, if I just did what I told Keshavi to do, which was to stay calm, if I didn't, and when I replay that event, I just think all I could have done is said, Keshavi, come here. Nothing's going to happen. Stay calm. Let doggy come. And I mean, I ain't got a clue about dogs, whether that dog was going to attack or not attack. But if I had calmness within me, if I had calmness within me and within my heart, if I was less fearful just generally, and I have fear inside me, then naturally that would have transpired and the situation would have calmed down. But what caused more of the trauma actually was my fear. What caused a lot of the trauma was my fear. Why? Because there's fear inside me. So the fear comes out in a challenging situation. And I think about this because about 5 or 6 years ago, we had someone who tried to burgle us, and we were in the house. And I remember when I saw the thief, like I opened, we could hear noises. So I opened this curtain and I saw the thief just literally just on our windowsill. And I looked at him and he looked at me and I went, ah! That's all I could think of doing. Why? Because there's fear inside me. And when there's fear inside, fear just comes out. Now, I know I'm talking about situations that some of you would say, oh, no, that's quite understandable. Yeah, it is. But also, what I'm trying to say is when you squeeze a lemon, you get lemon juice. When you squeeze an orange, you get orange juice. When you squeeze someone who's got lots of fear, fear comes out. When you squeeze someone who's calm, calmness will still come out. Calm. And I've seen people with going into some seriously difficult situations, but are still very, very calm, dealing with the situation in just so much patience. And I think, will I ever get to that stage? But what we're trying to say is that in the most difficult of situations, what is inside will come out. So Maharaj Parikshit, he's saying to Shukadev Goswami, what should I be doing? And Shukadev Goswami is saying, let's go straight for the heart. Let's go straight for the heart, because the heart is the inner world. And let's purify what's in this inner world. Let's purify what's in this inner world, because at the moment, our heart could have lower emotions like fear, like anger, like pride, like jealousy, envy, all these lower emotions. But the heart can also access higher emotions. The heart can access love, peace, compassion, forgiveness, giving, all these different emotions. And we have positive and negative emotions within us. It's just how much we can access the higher emotions compared to accessing the lower emotions. So Maharaj Parikshit, he has been practicing spiritual life in a deep way ever since he took birth, ever since he was born. He's had a very enriching upbringing, because he was living a life of bhakti. Even though he was a king, he was living as a king in a very saintly way. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, when we get into this second canto, it's Shukadev Goswami is glorifying not how many years we are here, but what we do in the years that we're here. Because Maharaj Parikshit, he's kind of like, okay, you're telling me I should be hearing this transcendental literature. You're also telling me I should be chanting the names of God. And we must have heard this already on these calls, how important it is to be chanting the names of the Lord, how important it is to hear transcendental literature, how how these are the things we can do, how these are the processes of devotional services that we can undertake so that we can really experience this connection with Krishna, this connection with the Lord. And Maharaj Parikshit says, but I've only got 7 days. How will I get there in 7 days? And Sukadev Goswami says to him, you know, even if you have got a moment, and in that moment, you use that moment in the most auspicious way, that's so much better than having all these years and you just wasting time. So here we are on a Thursday night. Thursday is the new Friday, so they tell me. But here we are on a Thursday night, 8:35 p.m. on Zoom, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. It's amazing, isn't it amazing? It's amazing. And when we actually start getting a taste, oh wow, this is what I'm going to do on a Thursday night. I'm going to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm going to get involved in a discussion about transcendental literature. I'm going to be able to uplift myself. I'm going to be able to take steps to become a better person, to live a more holistic life, to try and find this connection with the Supreme Lord. All of this is actually investment. It's our eternal investment. We hear often that the word for our daily spiritual practice is sadhana. We've heard that term before, sadhana. What does sadhana mean? It's sat, dhan. So sat is eternal and dhan is our wealth. So actually our sadhana, our spiritual practice is our eternal wealth. We're investing into our eternal we could say eternal returns, our eternal returns, because this connection with Krishna, it goes so deep. And even though at times we come face to face with what our negativities are, like that day in front of that dog, my fears came out. I can definitely say if this happened 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that would have affected me for so much longer. You know, that would have affected me for so much longer. Yes, at the time I was panicking. Yes, at the time I can honestly say, and I'm being honest, I can't lie, I didn't think of Krishna once. I was just scared. I was just thinking of my daughter. I was just thinking, oh my God, this is my 9-year-old daughter. And it's a fear I had. And actually we have fears based on where do our fears come from? The fears come from how we are brought up, all the different impressions we've had in our mind, all these different things build deep impressions. And after and even before, but after that event a couple of weeks ago, after that traumatic event, I should say, I was thinking, and I've known this for some time. I've always had a fear with my daughters, because when I was 8 years old or 9 years old, my first cousin, she was 6 or 7, she passed away in a car accident. So I think I've always, and that was the first, for me, that was my first introduction to death. Like, and it was a younger cousin, a girl. So it's like a big fear for me is my daughters. It's just I live with this fear. My daughters. It's just like this big fear that I carry around with me. And when I saw this dog, it was just like, it all came out. But what gave me a lot of solace and understanding is afterwards, after that event, I got to reflect and I got to think, and I did a lot of journaling after that, Tamendra, like you mentioned, a lot of journaling. And I really thought about this, and I was just thinking to myself, where would I be without these teachings? You know, like if I like all the stuff that we've all had a different upbringing, different things we've been through, different challenges, different difficulties. The material world is dukhayalam. It's meant to give pain. Maharaj Parikshit, he's been cursed to die in 7 days. Arjuna, face to face with his relatives, he has to kill them. The Pandavas before, you know, they were trying to burn them alive. Trying to burn them all alive, and they had to escape the house of lack, this wooden house which Duryodhana tried to burn, and so many different challenges. And we're all going through, maybe all been through different challenges. Maybe it's a relationship challenge. Oh my God, aren't relationships so hard? Aren't they just so hard? Whether it's a spouse, a parent, a child, so hard. It may be a health challenge. Health, there's always something. Some have difficult, some have more challenges than others. Financial difficulty. There's so many, and all these challenges can really overwhelm us. And I really feel personally that the challenges that I've had, if I didn't have the shelter of spiritual wisdom, then I would have become overwhelmed by all of them. I really would have become overwhelmed by all of them. And when we hear the transcendental literature, we can see that, okay, if I spend quality time in my eternal investment, if I spend some quality time with like-minded people, like we are on this group right now, in this group, like-minded people trying to uplift ourselves so we can have a more holistic life, so we can have a life worth living. Like what Shukadev Goswami says, spend less, even if you have less time, spend it uplifted, rather than just trying to prolong the years just to waste all those years, in one sense. So Maharaj Parikshit, what he's saying to, okay, fine, I understand, thank you, this is what I should be doing. I should be hearing, I should be chanting, but at the same time, Maharaj Parikshit, he gets this because he's been born with this. He's born with this, he's brought up with this, he knows this. And when he gets this confirmation, he's ready to go deep into these teachings. But Maharaj Parikshit, he's so concerned about everyone else who's assembled there. He's so concerned, okay, but not everyone who's assembled here is going to believe that hearing and chanting is all you got to do. There's some like yogis here who are practicing like meditation for thousands of years. Like they're not going to just buy into this already. What about them? So then what Maharaj Parikshit does for the rest of this chapter, he starts to describe Ashtanga Yoga. He starts to describe the yogic practices like pranayam and how to sit in a solitary place, going into the forest, breathing in a certain way, things that one should avoid, things that one should actually do. And then Maharaj Parikshit, Sukadev Goswami then explains the universal form and how one could just see the universe as a big form of the Lord. And this way, giving access to those who are inclined towards yoga, how those people who are inclined towards yoga can make advancement on the spiritual path. So then Maharaj Parikshit is hearing about this, and Maharaj Parikshit, while he's hearing about this, and sometimes for us, when we hear about this, we're thinking, okay, but I've understood. I've kind of got the point. I need to hear and chant. I don't really need to hear about all this stuff, you know. I don't need to hear about all this yogic practice and how I should do the yoga in this way and that way. Why is it here? The thing is, what's also really important when we are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and when we're hearing this this form of the Lord, this gigantic form of the Lord, or we could say the way the universe is made up, is we can really start to appreciate the greatness of the Lord. Like this Lord who has the universe, the universe, like for us, when I think of, oh, the universe has got my back, you're thinking of some huge, we think of some like massive operation. Like this world itself is huge. Like this planet Earth is huge. This is just one planet in this universe. And this universe, we just think of like, whoa. But if you think about the big picture, this universe is one of millions of universes. And it's said that this universe is just like one mustard seed in a bag of mustard seeds. You know, like mustard seeds you just chuck into your cooking when you're about to do a I don't know what we call it, a chamko, my wife calls it, but you know, like you're gonna like put it in the oil. I'm not really good at this cooking business, but yeah. So one mustard seed compared to millions of mustard seeds, and out of those millions of mustard seeds, one mustard seed is this universe, right? And the Lord is in control of all of that, like all of that. And when we can see the greatness of the Lord, like this person who is so great is so keen to have a one-to-one relationship with me. This Krishna, he wants a one-to-one relationship with me, and he's up for it. And if I show him I'm up for it, he's going to reciprocate with me. He says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says that as one surrenders unto me, I shall reciprocate with him accordingly, with them accordingly. So that means that as we show Krishna that we're up for this one-to-one relationship, he's up for this one-to-one relationship too. And this is the person who is the person who will give us the greatest sense of belonging. A lot of the time, we are finding our life difficult because we don't feel like we have a sense of belonging. We don't have a sense of, I belong to someone. Even though we may have a partner, even though we may have parents, even though we may have children, this sense of eternal belonging. And Krishna gives us this sense of belonging. I belong to him, and he belongs to me, and he's up for that relationship. This person who controls the whole universe, not just this universe, all the universes, he's up for this relationship with me. But do I want to do something in that relationship? And when I do something in that relationship, I feel the reciprocation in my heart. He says it. He says in the Gita also, Pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam susukam kartam avyayam. He says that this relationship is perceived directly within oneself. And when one perceives this relationship directly within oneself, susukam kartam avyayam, one will be always joyful. Sukam, always happy, always joyful. This process, the spiritual life, is a joyful process. It's meant to be a joyful process. But if we take spiritual life too fanatically, it doesn't become joyful. If we take spiritual life as a chore, it doesn't become joyful. If spiritual life just becomes something I've got to get done, it doesn't become joyful. But if we do it in the mood of a loving relationship, it's actually a very exciting, adventurous life, day after day after day. It's not boring. I remember in 2007, I think at that point I was practicing spiritual life 3 or 4 years seriously. And I think in 2007, maybe for 3 or 4 months, I kind of let my spiritual life dip for a few months. And when I let my spiritual life dip for a few months, all I kept thinking is, I'm so bored. Like, I'm just so bored. What do I do with my time? Like, you go to work, you do that. I'm just so bored. But when we're practicing spiritual life, there just isn't enough hours in the day. There's just not enough minutes in the hour. There's not enough hours in the day to really relish this relationship with Krishna. And Maharaj Parikshit, he's saying, I've only got 7 days. I've only got 7 days. But Shukadev Goswami is saying, doesn't matter how long. Let's just make sure every moment is special. Let's make sure every moment is uplifting. And let's make sure every moment is worth living for. So I'll end there. I hope that's okay in terms of a summary of the first chapter of the second canto. And I'd like to invite the assembled group to share their reflections and discussions or thoughts on what we've spoken about today. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That was really wonderful. Certainly made me laugh a bit with your stories, and yeah, it sort of brings back to us where we've been in our positions. Where we've had similar sort of impacts. I can recall that a friend of mine, when we went to Paris to the Disneyland, and both our children were very young, and we both had 2 kids. We both have 2 kids each, and we lost one of his children. He was cool as a cucumber. If it happened to me, I would have been like you. So it was that story reminded me of that. It was unbelievable. But yeah, if anyone wants to ask any questions, please put your hand up. if that's okay. I'll start off if that's okay. This class is a little bit shy, so you'll have to get them
Please
going.
don't be shy. Please don't be shy. It'd be really nice to hear everyone's thoughts and comments. Go ahead, Dharmendra, please.
If I just start off with a question from really last week, actually, I've been thinking about it. Now, where we talked about the regulatory principles, they said it derives from where Kali can reside. So what I was thinking about is the regulatory principle doesn't talk about hoarding gold, if you know what I mean. And yet Kali is able to reside in that sort of place. So why isn't that sort of theme within that? That's what I was trying to understand.
Yeah, I think because the way Kali Yuga is meant to progress, you see, the devotees, those that become spiritualized, those that will start to live an auspicious life, they will naturally stay away from the four regulative principles that are meant: gambling, illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication. But gold is everywhere. And that's why Kali said, like, where will I go? You know, like, where will I go? And what we see is because Kali Yuga is the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, what hypocrisy means is that even amongst religious people, and we see this so much, we'll see hypocrisy. That's the way the age is going. The way the age is meant, the way the years are meant to pan out is that things will become more degraded. So Kali needs a home in this world so that the world can become more degraded. So that's why Kali's been given a place so that even amongst, and we even see amongst religious institutions, there's so much quarrel and so much hypocrisy. So this is why, and if it wasn't gold, it would be something else. But Kali needs a home, even to create friction amongst religious people, or create hypocrisy amongst religious people, or so-called religious people, we should say. I should say that so-called religious people. But that's what we want to go above. We want to go above is above the quarrel, above the hypocrisy, and really shoot for that North Star, and that's Krishna.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
That's what comes to mind when I hear that.
Yeah, this is where I get a bit confused. You see, when people don't have their cameras, so I'll say Hare Krishna Venu Mataji, if you want to ask your question.
Hare Krishna, thank you for a beautiful session. It was really, really good. I particularly liked your real examples that we could actually, I could really relate to. And my question is on that actually. You said whatever is within us will come out. So if we are, have all these impressions, sorry, of fear, of uncertainty within us, how do we progress and uplift and get out of that stage so as to not to affect anyone else, but also not to affect ourselves?
Yeah, so saying that you mentioned how when we are, what's in us will come out. So if we've got a lot of uncertainty, and did you say fear, Vinu? Uncertainty.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Uncertainty, and when we've got uncertainty and fear within us, how can we overcome that? How can we rise above that, so that we don't affect others around us? Is that right? Did I hear your question correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you for that. It's really important what you're raising there. How can we overcome this? So how we can overcome uncertainty and fear, I think the first step, and I think you've already done that first step, Vinu, is recognizing it's there. Recognizing we have uncertainty, recognizing we have these fears. Try and also understand within ourselves what it is in particular we are uncertain of and fearful of. And also try and think where that comes from, because our uncertainties and fears are very different to someone else's uncertainty and fears, which is different to someone else's uncertainty and fears. Everyone has different uncertainties and different fears. When we get to know ourselves, we call it the science of self-realization. So yes, we want to realize the self, we want to realize our spiritual self, but we also want to realize our conditioned self so we can work on it. So what is it? What is it that I've got these uncertainties? Because where have they come from? Can I link it to anything? Do I know where it comes from? Because once we know where it comes from, that awareness really, really can help us process it. So that's, in one sense, what we call that is approaching this situation with the mode of goodness, becoming more aware within ourselves of what it is and where it may come from. We may not be able to track where it comes from, but we may have some idea. And then what kind of impact it's having on my life. So for example, I could say that fears I have having an impact on my life, because when I come across a difficult situation, I find it hard to maybe at that moment carry out exactly the right thing, and I spend some minutes just in despair or in fear, thinking, oh my God, I'm just like, I'm overcome by that fear before I can then take proper loving action, if you know what I mean. So that's the first step. And then the second thing I would say is, if we're in regular contact with like-minded people who are reading spiritual wisdom, then when we are, and this is actually something that Shukadev Goswami says in this chapter to Maharaj Parikshit, that if we are taking shelter of spiritual wisdom, then what happens is we become fixed in transcendence. And fixed in transcendence means that we become fixed in what is certain. We become fixed in who can give us fearlessness. And when we can have some sort of connection with the person, Krishna, who is totally fearless and is permanent. He's someone that's always with us, life after life after life. He says that. He's someone that is fearless. So if we connect to the supreme fearless, if we connect to the supreme certainty, then what happens is, in that connection, we will also become more certain about our life, because we'll be seeing the world through a spiritual vision. We'll be able to see it in a spiritual vision. So regular hearing and regular connection with like-minded souls can give us that direction of certainty and that direction of fearlessness. Is that okay, Vina?
Thank you. That was lovely. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you. Smithal Mataji, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you so much for wonderful class, Prabhu. It was really very nice. And your personal experiences, I mean, I had so many of them. I almost have every day. So my question is around awareness. So when we are in certain situations, for example, when I'm scolding my daughter on certain things, I am there in the moment. I know this is wrong. I know that in that moment, while I'm scolding, while I'm uttering those words from my mouth, I still feel in my mind that, you know what, I should take some other route instead of scolding. So what is this? When the awareness is there, but there is something, I don't know, compulsiveness or what, but I just feel like, yes, let me just do this, and maybe next time I'll be calm.
Yeah. Thank you, Smithal Mataji. What is it? What is it? What is it when we know the right thing, but we still do the wrong thing? And Arjun asked this to Krishna at the end of the 3rd chapter, and Krishna says, Kama esha krodha esha rajaguna samudbhavaha. He says that Mahasano Mahapapma Vidinam Ihavarinam. He says, actually, it's this lust, it's this desire to control. So because we have this desire to control, that turns into anger. Where does it come from? Rajaguna samudbhavaha, from this mode of passion, because of this lower mode that overcomes us. And then this mahasanoma, so this sin, this feed, it's our greatest enemy. It's within us, and we let it come out because we connect with the mode of passion. You're not alone. Even today, the same thing happened to me. We were at my place, and suddenly all my sockets in my flat, they all just didn't work. So my daughter was doing a Zoom tutorial and she just couldn't do it. And then I was like, oh my God. And my wife's gone to Italy. So then I brought my daughters here to my parents' place because I'm like, I've got this class to do at 8 o'clock. And it was like, and I was just like, and they were taking so long. I'm like, okay. And then it's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And it's like, okay, maybe we should just stay at mom and dad. Okay, get your school uniform. And one of my daughters like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm like, you better get on with it. And I was just like, come on, hurry up. And this is just today. This is just like before, like just this is like an hour ago, So I may look like this calm, saintly person, but yeah, I'm also this like mad, frantic dad. But I'm doing the same thing. But then actually, what it is this desire to control. It's this desire to control. You do what I tell you. You do what I say. And what happens is when we have this desire to control, things must be the way I want it. Things must be the way I say. Things must go the way I do it. And when it doesn't happen like that, it causes this control then turns into kama esha, krodha esha. It becomes anger, and then we become overcome by this inimical thing. So actually, what it is, I was also thinking about this just today, that when we want to control, these inner demons come out. Actually, we're trying to control the situation, but this material world isn't there for us to control. Ishvara Parama Krishna is the controller. And actually, if we try and let things flow, and for children especially, they don't get things like time and I'm like, I've got to Zoom at 8 o'clock. I need to get there. I need to set up at daddy's house. They're like, so what? I want to play. Like to them is their world is I want to play or I want to play. It's just like, or I want to watch something, or it's just like that's their kind of their big dilemmas in their life, and there's big things for them. So for us, if we can just try and understand what's going on in their world and try and take it from their world, and actually from their world try and nicely navigate the situation so that they can whatever, like for me, then getting her into the car, and it's like, just then I had to approach the whole thing in a different way. Like, okay, let's take a few minutes, and in those few minutes I didn't want to give her, but I had to give it to her. Let's have a hug. Okay, how should we do? What do you want to wear tomorrow? Let's pack your clothes. And we had to just do it in her world rather than my controlling world. And when we step out of needing to be the controller, these inner demons come out less. So there's the thoughts I'm having, because it just happened to me too today.
Wow, that was so beautiful, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. Can I ask one more question, if it is okay? Sure. Yeah. Prabhu, can you talk about Kanchanabja? I mean, what does it mean and from where does it come? Sorry. Yeah. I was always curious about your name from School of Bhakti.
Yeah, so Kanchanabja, so Bhakti Charu Swami, he's my spiritual master. He gave me this name. And when he gave me the name, he said that Kanchan is the molten gold form of Lord Chaitanya. And you find the name Kanchanabja in a bhajan about in a bhajan about Radharani, Kumara Kanchanabja, and this it's describing a golden lotus of Radharani. So that's the name. So Kanchan is gold and Abja is lotus, like that.
Very well. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Anyone else want to ask a question? See, I told you they were very shy. If I could just ask one more time in terms of, I think this will be helpful for all others. Just regarding your journaling, people usually sort of think, oh, my day-to-day event is almost the same. This journaling won't work for me. So if you could give some sort of guidance regarding journaling for the class, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, the day-to-day might be the same, but how we feel might be different. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. It said there's a famous saying, name your feelings, tame your mind. How did I feel? It's not just about the event that happened. Yeah, I woke up at 6:30 and I went to work, and that can happen. But how did we feel during the day? How did we see ourselves reacting and responding to different challenges in the day? How did we do it differently? How did we do it? What were the positive? What were the wins? What were the good things that happened? The good things we did? What were the challenging things that I can work on? And when we can just become more in tune with ourselves, what happens is the magic happens once you start writing. And once you start writing about how you're feeling and where it may come from, then you actually start churning into parts of yourself we didn't even know were there. It's a real journey of discovery, actually, when we do some journaling. What actually happens, you see, generally, because our mind is so impulsive, we live our day-to-day life in a very impulsive way. This happened, that, do this, do that, do this, that's happened, okay, do this happened, do that. So what journaling does is it separates our intelligence and our mind. And when we can separate our intelligence and our mind, we can let our spiritualized intelligence make our mind our friend. But if we don't separate the intelligence and the mind, then the mind, as Krishna says in the Gita in 6.6, is the mind will just remain the greatest enemy. So in order to make the mind the friend, Krishna says we must control the mind. But we can only control the mind if we become separate from the mind. If we separate ourselves from what the mind is saying to us, what the mind is what the mind is subtly convincing us to do. And if we can just separate and think, hey, actually, that's just my mind. That's just my mind. That's not me. That's just my mind. Or sometimes when we have some motivation to do something vengeful towards someone, or be mean to someone, then if we just write about it, we'll be able to think, actually, that's just the mind. Me, the real me doesn't want to actually hurt anyone. The real me doesn't want to upset anyone. The mind wants to tell this person they're this and they're that, and they're no good, and I hate them or whatever. But actually, me, the person, doesn't want to bring out this stuff. And when we can do that, a lot of the time, what can happen is just by writing, we can release a lot of negative emotions that we then don't need to spill out into anyone else because we've actually processed it for ourselves. So it's a very wonderful way of self-realization, getting to know ourselves and actually improving the way we deal with others and actually the way we treat ourselves. A lot of the time we treat ourselves quite harshly. We're quite harsh with ourselves. We're very idealistic with who we should be. Sometimes I'm like this myself. Oh, I've been practicing spiritual life for 22 years and I'm still shouting at my daughter, or I'm still scared of a dog when a dog's trying to do this, or I tell myself, like, why am I not? And then I think to myself, hey, it's okay, Krishna still loves me. Krishna loves me for who I am, and Krishna doesn't love me less. Krishna doesn't love me less, so why should I love myself less? So all of this comes part of our getting to know ourselves better, and journaling is a really wonderful way of getting to know ourselves. And therefore, when we get to know ourselves, we can respect ourselves, we can take care of ourselves, and then we can be a better person for everyone else also. So yeah, thank you for asking, Dharmendra. I hope that helps.
Yeah. No, that was beautiful. Thank you very much for that. We hope we can see you at Canto 3 then, please, Prabhuji.